You are now entering the Nooniverse.
All right, we're live.
We're live. Welcome to the Nooniverse. I am Kevin, the reluctant Messiah Bennett.
And I am David, the fishy detective Axford.
And I am Senpai Grant, your
Senpai.
audio guy.
We're trying out nicknames.
Yeah. Tweet, by the way, seriously, tweet at us at the Nooniverse. That's with 2 O's, not
Yeah.
a U, for nickname
Like
ideas.
it
Critiques
is
about the
high
nicknames.
noon
Yes.
in the Nooniverse.
Yes.
Yes, high noon.
Mm-hmm.
Just like it says on the side of our little noon moon, our little noon moon man, noon moon dude man. So, question on everyone's mind: yo, what is this? Why are you guys called the Nooniverse in the first place?
Kevin, I'm so glad you asked.
Enlighten me, man. Teach me about some stuff.
Okay, so this podcast was inspired by the idea that a French philosopher came up with, and his name is Pierre Teilhard. I think that's how you pronounce the
No,
middle
it's
name.
Pierre, tell us.
Tell
us.
hard
him,
and tell us.
Like Soulja Boy, tell him.
Deschardin. And he was kind of an interesting guy. Well, not kind of an interesting guy. He was a very interesting guy. He was a World War I veteran, and he fought for the majority during World War I. He was also a Catholic priest, and because of the Catholic priest part, this next tidbit is interesting. He was a biological anthropologist and did most of his studying in China and extensively studied human evolution. And he was also a pretty big writer. And the book that I read, and I shared this idea with you and then with Grant, is The Phenomenon of Man.
Yeah.
And one of the points about The Phenomenon of Man is, or the big point about that book is that humans are evolving on multiple levels outside of a biological level. So,
Gotcha.
so
That's
we are,
the part that I know.
Yes. So we're familiar with biological evolution and natural selection and that sort of thing.
And the Earth itself is part of that whole thing.
And
like the non-living part of the Earth, then the living part of the Earth, and then his ideas.
And so he believed that we were evolving culturally, which I think, is pretty evident. There's literally a fossil record of culture.
Right.
Pretty much. So I think that that's pretty reasonable to say. And he also believed that we were evolving spiritually.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
And then where the idea for this podcast comes in is intellectually as well. And he coined this concept, I think, with actually a couple other philosophers as well.
There was a Russian guy or something.
Yeah.
Vladimir Vladinsky. That's probably not right.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's
Isn't that like every Russian guy's name?
I think that's the star of the vampire in Twilight or something. I think that's what I think it was the Vladiminsky family, right, in Twilight. And the intellectual evolution of man happened in this sphere, almost like he described it almost as a layer of atmosphere of the Earth called the noosphere. And that's N-O-O sphere.
Which, full disclosure, we're not entirely sure we're pronouncing it right.
No.
Right.
We don't know.
Because I've seen on the Wikipedia page, which the Wikipedia page is in the description of the YouTube channel. Go check it out. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
One of the phonetics, right? That's what that's called, the phonetics.
what it's
Yeah.
called.
Okay, cool. Party. Is there's an umlaut on one of the O's. So I don't know if it's like noosphere,
I
but
don't mess with that.
yeah.
Don't mess with it.
Yeah,
It's Twitter.
yeah, so don't tweet that at us, what you think that is, but
Because we're running with Noosphere.
yeah, we're running with Noosphere, and we're gonna take that into a new level. We're what? We're expanding that into a verse. We're gonna create a whole verse of learning and collective knowledge that's gonna evolve. It's gonna collect. It's gonna grow bigger, and it's gonna be random.
Yeah.
Pretty
Right.
much.
It's quite a forage for knowledge.
Yes, and that's our little motto is we're going to try and learn anything and everything possible. And that's what this is about. This isn't really about us teaching or us putting our opinions out there. This is more
Right.
we're interested in stuff and we want to learn about it.
Right. So it's
Yeah.
kind of seeing everything from all perspectives, all sides of
Yeah.
Right.
Getting academic about things.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Particularly about things that we either disagree with or don't know.
Right.
Or don't know.
Yeah.
Because there's stuff that I don't know about that I disagree with. So
So on I did research obviously on things that have to do with the new sphere or new sphere and
Good.
Yeah, that's I did my homework.
yeah.
I didn't just draw pictures of a little circle in space.
Hey, you also drew stars.
I drew
Give yourself more
stars, too.
credit.
And I did font. It was Arial.
yeah.
Not
but-
papyrus.
It was not papyrus. So I know that in the whole the phenomenon of man, there was, like I mentioned, the geosphere is like the non-living part of the earth,
Right.
And then there's the biosphere, and then the new sphere, and then I think it's whatever the spiritual sphere is called. Is
Yeah.
there some kind of rhyme or reason to them having like a hierarchy on it almost? Because I think there was a hierarchy.
There is. Yes,
Yeah.
there is. Because the whole point of that book, and actually on the cover of the book, there's the Greek symbol omega, and that humans are evolving towards what's called an omega point. And this is where he started to lose me a little bit, and I really want to know more about is God created us in a vision. By the way, we're not going down a religion thing.
Right.
Save that for later.
But in the yeah, save that for a different episode. But God created us so that we would evolve to a point where we were like him or her or it, the spaghetti monster, whatever.
Right.
Right.
And that point was called the omega point, and that the hierarchy is that probably the last thing that's going to evolve is the spiritual sphere, and we sort of have to break through barriers in the different spheres.
This is some very
Gotcha.
Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
I was just about to say,
Yeah.
Grant has recently been reading Richard Bach. I've loved Richard Bach my whole life, and I was just thinking to myself when you mentioned that like we're evolving towards to be like God, which would
Yeah.
be that omega point. That does fall in line with at least how I understand a lot of Christian specific, because he was a Catholic priest.
Yeah.
So a lot of Christian specific.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's David just said it.
Oh.
Thanks, Grant.
So Senpai Grant's over there on the boards looking at green lights. And
Yeah, he's producing. He's actually doing a great job. So
in studio
Thanks, guys.
producing.
yeah.
I
But
thought you meant Richard.
Richard Bach. No,
Yeah.
no. This guy.
Oh,
Gotcha.
Frenchie.
Gotcha.
yeah. And that has a lot to do with the inspiration behind his work. Is that
Yeah.
he was integrating science with his Catholic beliefs, and he actually was not allowed to publish any of his stuff until after he was dead.
Wow.
So so stuff that he had written over the course of like 50 years actually was published all at once in the 1960s, I think, when he died. So there's actually a much larger anthology of works that he's done besides this book. But this book he wrote before he died, and he wasn't allowed to publish it because of his priest status with the Catholic Church.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because it's very controversial. I mean, to even bring up evolution, like we're evolving religiously. That's, I mean,
Yeah.
particularly in
right.
the 20th century.
Right. Well, it makes sense from even the perspective of just looking back throughout history from like a religious standpoint. It does seem like it's been evolving. It's been changing. It adapts to the culture. Like no one can really deny that. But even from like a very basic Christian belief, which is where he might have been drawing some of that inspiration from, and where like the Jonathan Livingston Seagull and
Right.
Illusions, the whole Richard Bach thing, which by the way, my copyright stolen little nickname I gave myself is from a phenomenal book called Illusions. Everyone should go read it. The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah.
Yeah. This episode of the Nooniverse brought to you in part by
Brought to you in part by the Richard Bach Foundation. Go learn and stuff, people.
I almost made an audible joke, but I feel like that'd be bad.
So, but the idea of like at the very base of Christian theology is that like you're supposed to be more like Jesus. That
Yeah,
kind of spans
right, yeah.
almost all denominations, and the idea that if you know we're going towards an omega point and you want to kind of secularize in a sense the idea of that omega point as just being more like God, then that makes sense with at least his background.
And he came from a very scientific perspective. I don't really agree with that logic. Because, by the way, audience, we're scientists, and
Yes. We didn't really give that background.
yeah, that will become more evident later. But
Yeah, we'll
I
touch on
have
that in a
I have a
second.
very hard time. Actually, after this was explicitly stated to me by one of my professors, the concept of a teleological argument, and that it's happening to make something else happen. And that's a very dangerous argument in the context of evolution. And I think that
Like assuming that some certain event has to happen, therefore this stuff is happening to make that happen.
yes,
Gotcha.
Oh gosh, that's
and, yeah,
logically
that's
weird.
a very that's a very dangerous argument in evolution, and I really agree with like evolving culturally and spiritually. I think
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of scientific evidence for that, but to say that it's happening to make event X, omega point, whatever, happen, I think that's a very dangerous argument. So I really start to reel back away from his logic from that book because of that reason. But I think that evolving intellectually and culturally and spiritually has been pretty evident throughout human history.
Yeah.
And that's the point of this podcast, is that we're going to explore the intellectual evolution and evolve and grow and learn some stuff and things.
Yeah.
I know I will.
Yeah, so I guess before we get into more of like the specifics behind Noosphere stuff, we might as well like do more on introductions. We kind of just jumped right into that. I liked it though; it was organic. Also, we're currently in studio, is a glorified way of saying Grant's bedroom.
That's right, you
This
guys.
is pretty.
It's working well.
This is
Yeah.
pretty professional for a bedroom studio.
It's got
Yes.
a couch.
It's got a couch.
It's got a couch.
It's got a table.
It's got a whiteboard. We have a Joro style, Papa Joro bless, TV
Bless.
showing us exactly how loud we're being. And I started to notice that I am coming in quite hot when I start. So we apologize, and we are going to fix all of these technical issues with time.
I'm perfect.
Yes.
I'm also perfect.
Yeah, Grant, as you will learn, is just perfect. So
And
By the
on
way-
learning about us
by his house, by Grant's house.
by Grant's house,
I'm a
that will.
real estate agent in training.
So let's I guess introduce ourselves a little bit more in depth. Who wants to start?
You.
Okay,
Please.
I'm gonna start. So I am Kevin Bennett.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
I've been sober my whole life.
It's really annoying, actually.
So, yeah. So I know that my main motivation for doing this was just that David and I like just would never stop talking and
Yeah.
conversing about random stuff all the time. And we were into a lot of the same stuff, and we met each other through. I'm in a master's degree program studying bioinformatics. David's finishing up his undergrad in biology. He works in a biochemistry microbiology lab.
More on that in just a minute.
Yeah, more on that in just a minute. I study bioinformatics. I work with computers and genetics and protein biology, structural stuff. That's how I describe it to everyone, so they stop asking me about it.
Tweet at us about
at
Kevin's
us.
research.
Ask me about my research, and I'll delve into quite a rabbit hole with anybody. But I am on my way to medical school and very interested in science and just the idea of science even. And we're definitely going to have an episode where we talk about the idea of just research and science and
Multiple episodes.
multiple episodes. Good Lord, the philosophy behind research and how science is developed is fascinating, and I have
And
lots
we have
to
some
say.
fascinating people in the scientific community to come on and talk about
Yes,
that.
we do. Besides that, I guess that's all that really needs to be said. Yeah.
One extracurricular thing. Do
It's
it.
like an icebreaker.
Yes. Yes.
One extracurricular thing. I run a lot.
That's an understatement.
Yeah.
I run pretty far and pretty fast. I like that.
I like all things running.
Yeah.
I don't.
I don't either.
Well, tell us what you do like, David. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm David, the fishy detective Axford, and that'll make a little more sense in a minute.
I'm loving these nicknames.
Yeah. Tweet at us still. That's tweet, please. Because we only have one follower.
It may be my mom.
Yeah. Well, it's my girlfriend, so it might as well be my mom. Wow, that's really good, babe. Thanks. But I'm studying cellular and molecular biology. I'm graduating from my undergraduate next semester. And this is recorded in the winter if you're listening to this later. So in the spring, I'm graduating. I'm also minoring in anthropology and focusing in biological anthropology. So Deschardin is my boy because he made a lot of discoveries in China. And I do research in a protein biochemistry lab. It was originally hardcore microbiology, and we looked at the biosynthesis of flagella. Doesn't that sound sexy, right? And there's actually a really funny story about that. I went to UGA on a research internship thing, and my girlfriend and my mom and my sister, they were so proud and they wanted to hear about my research. So they drove up to UGA, and this is when I was a freshman and 19-year-old. And I mean, my mom and my girlfriend are still my biggest fans, but they were more so back then. And they wanted to drive up and hear about...
They've been a bit fair weather in the recent years.
And they drove up and they wanted to hear about the research. And in the library, multiple whiteboards, drawing it out. This is what we're studying and the implications and in cancer, because there's some pathology behind that, but whatever. And my mom just says, "So you're studying cell buttholes?" I was like, "No, that's not at all. That's whatever. It's fine." But now my research is actually on CRISPR-Cas, which is very
cool.
Yeah, hot button stuff.
Hot button stuff.
Looking at you, Joe Rogan.
By the way, it's not as cool as a lot of people make it out to be. It's got a long way to go.
Yeah.
And I could also go on a whole rabbit hole. And my research has actually turned into not so much using CRISPR-Cas, because that's what it was originally, but there are so many issues with it that my research has turned into trying to look at and fix the issues with CRISPR-Cas and how it could be used practically, because it's not very practical right now. Just so you know.
One extracurricular activity.
I like to fish. I really like to fish. I love fish. Fish are cool.
He's wearing a shirt right now that says Rainbow Reef.
Yes. By the way, hit up Rainbow Reef.
He also doesn't know if there are tiger fish in North Africa.
I don't think there are. I think that's like sub-Saharan Africa, like around the Congo.
Sub-Saharan? Oh, are they freshwater?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Where are they?
There are fish outside of the salt water.
Yeah, that's true.
Although salty water fish are pretty cool.
I like salty water fish.
Marlin. I don't know why I said it like that.
Oh, marlin.
Yeah, marlin.
Marlin. You should have... Yeah, Marlin, as in Truman Show guy.
If you ask me to edit that out, I will not.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Speaking of your ability to edit things, Grant.
Yeah.
What's up?
Oh, nothing much. My name is Grant, and I have known Kev forever.
Yeah.
And
long
David
time.
more recently, but feels
Hi.
like forever.
Nice to meet you.
And nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
And no, I transferred to Kennesaw State last year, and I've been through multiple programs, like a culinary program, a physical therapy program, things like that.
You studied geometry for a while.
Geography, but geometry is the same thing. Right?
Yeah.
So,
And you also you did biochemistry for a while as well, right?
I was no, it was more A&P stuff for pre-physical therapy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I did delve into the medical field a little bit, not as sciencey as these guys, but I'm here to learn. I'm excited.
And he's the senpai of this dojo.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I went to Japan once, and
And now you're Senpai
now I'm
Grant.
Senpai Grant.
Yeah. The producer of the Nooniverse.
Yep.
Yes,
That's me.
Grant is about to tell us his extracurricular activity, which I'm going to force into the reason you're sitting over there next to all of the technical stuff.
I make dope beats.
The dopest Trap Lord VA Grant.
Yes.
Just kidding. I just make beats.
If you need a trap horn inserted literally anywhere,
just
Grant's
let me
your guy.
know, and
Yeah.
there will be trap horns.
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe that should be your sensor noise.
Yes.
Is a trap horn.
We're thinking about sensor noises for whenever our mouths slip, and David.
Not because we particularly care about vulgarity, but because we think it'd be funny.
I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I know, like, when I was a kid, I remember watching South Park. Like, I bought one of the seasons, and you heard the actual cursing.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it wasn't as funny as when
SpongeBob with the dolphins.
SpongeBob with
God,
the...
yeah.
Oh, my gosh. SpongeBob with the dolphins. Would it have been funnier if you had just heard them, like, actually saying words? Or was it funnier when you just heard...
Well, there's my favorite YouTube channels, they bleep out the words, but they use like ducks and like water drop, and it's and then I hear them curse. I'm like, it's so much funnier when y'all bleep it out.
Yeah.
So just keep doing that.
So we're gonna bleep stuff out. And you like ducks?
I like ducks. Ducks are pretty cool.
I really want a little cat's like meow, like a very like little kitten.
We can make that happen.
Yeah. And Grant, it's got to be a trap horn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It's gonna
well,
gonna sound like a bunch of.
it's-
It's gonna sound like a farm and then John Cena.
Well, for you, Grant, it's we talked about this earlier. It's either got to be a trap horn or a howler monkey.
Oh, the howler monkey.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
We will do both.
A trap howler monkey? Is there such a thing?
Are
Are we
howler-
breaking down barriers already? Are we pioneering the Nooniverse already with trap howler monkeys?
Are howler monkeys the things in Japan that
No.
sit
Nope.
in the hot springs?
Nope.
What
Not
are
even
those guys?
close. I'm pretty sure that's a species of macaque.
It is a species of.
Is that how you say it? I thought it was macaw.
That's a bird.
Look it
Thanks for
up,
playing,
Senpai Grant.
Kevin.
We've got
Yeah,
our
look this
fancy
shit up.
thing here. Macaque?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh my god, look at the anus on that one. Look at that.
Jeez. It must have sat on a beehive.
That looks photoshopped.
That's gotta be
That's gotta be
photoshopped.
photoshopped.
That is like a Kim Kardashian level macaque. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a macaque with his
iPhone.
with
With
his iPhone.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's also
Hanging
an
on a hot
iPhone
spring.
5. So
He's
look
doing
at how far
this-
we've come. Howler monkeys.
We've
This
come
is my
very far.
biological anthropologist coming into play because I had to know the phylogeny and the locations of all the modern primate taxonomy.
Wow.
South America.
Macaques come from South America?
No, howler monkeys.
Howler
Focus.
monkeys come from South America.
Yes, they come from South America. Macaques are in East Asia.
Well, I feel stupid now.
You just learned something. Look at you.
I did just learn something. That's what it's all about.
Yep, the more you know.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
universe.
So, yeah. Howler monkeys are not in Japan. Hashtag the Nooniverse. Tweet at, we're starting somewhere.
Yeah, that's actually that should really be the first hashtag campaign that we do. Is that macaques
Raise awareness.
raise awareness that macaques live in Japan, hang out in the hot springs.
Speaking of which, anybody know where hedgehogs live? We don't.
Yes, and actually we will have somebody on. We'll have a full episode about hedgehogs.
We were having a discussion before Senpai Grant came back home. We were having a full discussion about not knowing where hedgehogs come from and thinking, why not get an expert?
Yes.
Please.
Yeah, so you will be on the show if you live in the Metro Atlanta area.
Yes.
If you know a lot about it, if you are a professional hedgehogologist.
Yeah,
What's,
we want you.
That's the word.
Yeah, got to be the word. What's the species?
We're looking
what's the
up that
species
word.
name for hedgehog? While Senpai Grant is looking up the species of hedgehog, what the actual species of hedgehog is, episode content.
Yeah.
Since this is an intro episode, we should probably actually talk about intro stuff
Yeah, I can't say that word.
Okay, we are looking at
real quick.
Erinacine.
Ologist.
Erinacine.
Erinacine-ologist.
Erinacine.
If you know anyone,
If you
or
know
if
any
are one,
Erinacine, and
And
they
if
better
we
call
haven't
themselves an
offended
Erinacine.
you,
They better call themselves an Erinacine. If we're pronouncing that wrong, we don't want you. Oh no, I can't look. It says where they're from. I don't want to know. I gotta find it out
yeah,
straight from the
shield
source.
your eyes.
You can't trust Wikipedia.
I just diverted my eyes straight into the pop shield so that I couldn't see. So
Yes, back to what this is going to be about. So, episode content. One example could be hedgehogs.
hedgehogs, yeah.
Who knows? Whatever sounds
And also a lot
interesting
of
to
what
us.
just happened.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just exploring ideas and continuing to talk. So
What's the heart of soul food?
Grant,
save it.
Yeah.
save it,
Okay.
okay? Because that's gonna get violent.
That's the other part. We have a lot of discussion. It's pretty much all dialectic, except we're going to have a vicious debate
Yes.
coming up very soon, ladies and gentlemen. So episode content, we're really looking at genuinely having discussion around specific ideas. This intro episode is basically going to be about what the whole idea of like the new idea, NOO, Nooniverse, New Sphere idea is. Throwing more guffaws at me.
Guffaw. It's very woody.
Very gone. It didn't take long for them to get me to say that. So Same Pie Grant is losing it.
Yeah.
Stay professional, boys. So we plan on having interviews with people. We have
Yes.
a bevy of scientists available to us in
Yes.
our research consortium of our university.
Yes.
We know very interesting people, and we're genuinely curious. And I think whenever I was talking about this when we were first coming up with the idea of even having people like come in to be interviewed by us, that you can take just any normal person, even if there's just some amount of passion in them. You take some normal person, you find that passionate thing, and you just have people who are curious about that passionate thing, and you ask them about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't even
Great
have to go so
conversation.
far as a passion, really, because a lot of people, I feel like, don't feel like they want to be talked to. And that's also, I mean, that's one thing that I want to get out of this podcast is that I want people to feel like they want to be talked to. And you don't even have to find the passion. You just say, hey, you want to talk? And it doesn't really matter what it is. People will start talking to you.
Sure,
So,
yeah.
So that's obviously going to be a big thing. I don't really know how much is going to be really interview versus.
I think out of the show ideas we have so far, probably like 20%.
Yeah, I was going to say somewhere around a
25%.
quarter.
Yeah.
And we're going to be filling you in on just interesting stuff that we do. For instance, right now we are in the middle. The three of us actually are in the middle of a story competition. Just out of the blue,
Yes.
Grant and I
Yeah.
came up with the idea of.
Oh God, I need to
Just-
write more.
Yeah, me too.
Grant and I came up with the idea like a very Mary Shelley type competition just to see who can write the best story. We gave ourselves this entire month of December to write a story, and when we're done with it, we're going to have a show about that, and we're going to be bringing on some literary people to talk with us.
Yes.
One person in particular,
The one and only Mama Paula.
David's mother. She will be critiquing
She was a
us,
literature teacher for over a decade, so that's why she's going to be on.
Nice.
and she's fun.
And she's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
But yeah, so the main highlight, the main takeaway from all the content of the episodes is that we're going to bring, we're gonna have a topic, we're gonna have an idea that we want to discuss, and we're gonna bring things that have to do with that idea that are very interesting to us, that we want to kind of master and then teach through conversation and explore the ideas through conversation,
Yeah.
see what everyone else has to say about it. That kind of goes along with the whole idea as to why we called it the Nooniverse, coming from the idea of the new sphere, which is just the more we learn about things, the more we teach, the more we converse, the more we're just going to expand. You know, it's like kind of a grandiose idea, but I guess, but like expand human intellect.
Well, even if we can do it on a small scale, you're still expanding things.
Yeah,
Right.
You know?
It's every person. I guess that's kind of the idea of the new of the whole new sphere, is just that it's supposed to be you try basically.
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
you learn, you read.
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole point of evolution, isn't it? Is that you try and then you
Exactly.
and then
yeah.
you either get selected for or against.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of that. Speaking of being selected against, I have an embarrassing question. What does the word lyceum mean?
So for everyone,
Because that's written on our whiteboard with all of our show notes.
we have a whiteboard. I wrote it with Grant. Not sure if I spelled it right.
No, you wrote it with me earlier today.
No, I did.
Yeah. Anyways,
Was
I
that
was not
earlier
here for
today?
that.
yes.
Okay.
Or it was yesterday.
It
But
might have been yesterday.
But
Oh,
still,
yes.
you wrote it, and I was like, yes, lyceum, of course. But
So a
Oh,
lyceum.
yes, Rhodesian.
Yes, Rhodesian. Hot Rod, great movie, everybody. So Lyceum was like the Greek. I think it was a gathering place that like the Greek philosophers, Greek intellectuals, the 10% of the population that wasn't a slave, that they would go, they would go to a Lyceum to just
ancient Greece, not all that great apparently.
yeah. They would go to these lyceums and just think and talk about ideas, come up with all the philosophy. That's why we get so much philosophy out of Greece, because people literally, they were smart people, and if you believe in the whole idea of this new sphere, then we were at a point in history where we were expanding our intellect just greatly, and there happened to be this one place that already had the
forum for it.
Right. It had all the resources available there, which, like I just said, was partially due to slavery. But out of that, these lyceums help to expand our ideas, our political systems, our governments, our economic ideas, our morals, and just give us a forum for expanding human knowledge. So that's what the Lyceum was all about. And it's kind of what we're doing here with all of these topics that we're just going to be exploring for no particular reason. And that kind of brings me to one point about the whole new sphere thing that I wanted to get at, which was I went to the Wikipedia page for new sphere and was linked out to a couple cool things that all had the word new in them. One was New Genesis. NOO Genesis, like angiogenesis for blood vessels or something like that. So it's the, and it actually,
for those of you who don't know about blood vessel biogenesis, it's angiogenesis. That's the word.
That's the creation of blood vessels. New blood vessels. So New Genesis is just the idea that as biology has become more complex, become more evolved, I guess is the best way to just put it. As biology has become more evolved, we've gained more capacity for expanding our knowledge. That is kind of a weird way of thinking about it.
I don't think so. Because,
really? Well, like, so they link it, before you make your point, they link it to like brain size. Or some people modernly say that as, like, you can look at, like, as the population of humans on the earth has grown, or even like people like or other species related to Homo sapiens has grown and gotten bigger and bigger, and civilizations have gotten bigger. It's completely correlated with like the scope of the societies, and even with the creation of more neurons.
Well, I don't think
weird.
It is weird, but I don't think it's a particularly absurd thing to say, because I mean, both of y'all were there. Thank you again for coming to my presentation just a little while ago.
It's right there.
I just recently gave a presentation related to human evolution, and one of my big points was that culture evolves out of biology, and that our biology, specifically brain biology, has evolved, and we have directional selection for that in the order of primates for larger brains, but not just larger brains, but also more complex brains. And I think that the volume combined with the complexity allows us to form thought and then articulate it in a very particular way. So I think that New Genesis is pretty reasonable.
Yeah, well,
could you also look at New Genesis as, I mean, specifically now, as merging our biology with better technologies, things like that?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. So
well, I mean, the new sphere almost quite literally exists with the advent of the internet.
Absolutely.
So I mean, there is almost a collective consciousness of humanity that is only unattainable by a few from a reductionist standpoint, logistical issues.
Well, so that's all of this is like flowing perfectly into the stuff that I learned about. So one of the big things in the idea of the evolution of like New Genesis and where are we now? Like, how long have we been at the point that we're at now? Because some people could say, like, when they started saying, like, I don't know, like when you had the Greeks or something, when you look at their society from like an aesthetic standpoint, a technological standpoint, it's nothing compared to ours. But at the same time, like were they not as smart as us? I have a hard time thinking that. It's just a matter of where you are and what you have available to you. However, I do think they made a point in there that since our they made a point that the evolution of New Genesis, the next phase of New Genesis, is going to be probably artificial intelligence. That we're expanding intelligence. We're not expanding our intelligence. We're expanding the new sphere, which is just the intelligence that exists on the Earth.
Right.
And it's getting expanded through artificial intelligence.
We need to save the conversation for artificial intelligence.
No, we're absolutely saving that.
Yeah, because I have so much to say about artificial intelligence, and so much that I want to have heard me heard, not necessarily anyone else, but I need to learn more about it because I have very strong viewpoints about it. So,
and another part, so another thing that we're going to have many conversations about too, because I know Grant and I, you too, we've all been interested in this kind of thing recently due to certain podcasts we've been listening to. But altered consciousness. So using it in an efficient way, looking back at, and that you could even say like that's been an older practice that might have led us to the place that we're at now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, much of archaic medicine is altering people's consciousness and trying to do something about it.
But on the present day, you've got people who are like microdosing LSD, things like that, you know.
And it seems to be working. I mean, I don't have the stuff out in front of me, but I know when I heard about it, I went on a massive like rampage of looking at any of the science that's been done about it, and it's fascinating. It's so speaking of that, another one of the things I found that had the word "new" in it was nootropics, and I've known about nootropics.
Yeah.
I know most people have heard the word before.
Yeah.
It's nootropics.
Huh.
Yeah, it's completely based off of this whole idea. Okay, Grant's got a PubMed open right now. Microdosing, concept, application, and relevance.
Ooh.
The use of microdose pharmacokinetic studies as an essential tool in drug development is still to catch on. That's what it seemed like for most of what I've.
Grant, save that URL.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll link that in there. But yeah, the idea of microdosing with these. With basically any kind of drug. I know one of the popular things that we've heard about is like LSD or psilocybin mushrooms. And I have, you know, an anecdotal N=1 very like we say that a lot, by the way. Example of this, but I know a couple of people who are like, you know, CEO level, very like hyper driven, very, very successful people who do this. And they say that they learned about it from all of their other super, super successful friends. And it's weird. Like,
not Wolf of Wall Street doing cocaine out of hookers' orifices. Not that. That's not microdosing, just so everyone knows.
Like going through all the research, finding pharmaceutical people to like tell them like, oh, you should try these things, and like they learn exactly how do they optimize their brain, and that's New Genesis basically. Like using nootropics. How do we use any kind of natural or synthesized substance to increase our ability to learn to do things, our cognitive ability, basically.
So I think that since you've brought up that we listen to podcasts, the another part of the inspiration for the Nooniverse is that we're podcast junkies. I mean, that's essentially my only form of entertainment. Is, I mean, besides a few YouTube channels, but I mean, if you ever see me, I am generally staring at a wall with earphones and listening to a variety of podcasts.
Yeah, and I think it would we would be remiss if we didn't pay homage to the man himself that gave us the entire inspiration for this thing that we have obsessed with, the king of podcasts,
Griffin McElroy.
Damn it, Senpai Grant. Oh, there's my first kitten noise. Maybe not. I don't know.
That's also the highest peak that we've got.
Dang. Yeah, I apologize, everybody. We're still figuring this stuff out.
we are not covering any medical expenses. That,
No.
Yeah. That,
No.
For injuries that may incur from listening to this podcast.
You signed that waiver when you hit play.
Yeah. By the way, the waiver is in the middle of the first episode, not at the beginning. Maybe we should have rethought that. But yes, Joe Rogan.
We highly recommend Joe Rogan.
Yes.
He's in fact the only featured channel on our YouTube channel.
Yes, he's the only person who we're gonna follow on Twitter, by the way. So don't.
Yeah.
We-
But yes, Joe Rogan's
that maybe also General Mattis.
maybe. Just to keep an eye on North Korea.
Yeah.
So Joe's podcast is very much what we're trying to emulate, but maybe with a bit more direction. Because we all got together. I think one of the big episodes was after we heard the Paul Stamets episode, which he's the guy, he's the mycologist, the mushroom guy.
The first big one for me, and I haven't listened to Joe Rogan very long, but the first big one for me was when he talked to Ben Shapiro.
Oh, dude, I've been listening to Joe Rogan since high school, man.
Yeah.
But it didn't click until Paul Stamets.
Yeah. Really? It took you that long? Took me one episode.
One episode, like, oh, I
Come
can do that.
Kevin, get with it.
Well, I know for me, it was when I watched that Paul Stamets episode. That's when the idea of the podcast became because I know all three of us like watched that episode. I say watch because we watch it on YouTube, but listen to it. Listen to them talk, and it finally clicked to me that like I didn't care at all about mushrooms. It meant nothing to me.
Right up until you learn that mushrooms reorganize the Tokyo subway network in a more efficient way.
Yeah, and the largest living organism I think in the world is a mushroom that's or some kind of mushroom.
Canada.
Yeah, it's like in Canada, like on the border.
Pull that up, Senpai Grant.
Pull up on the monitor. But yeah, and then I just started researching mushrooms like crazy. I loved it, and I thought, isn't that insane that it's honey fungus is the mushroom.
2.4 miles across. What
Good
in
Lord.
Oregon?
Blue Mountains.
It's almost its own zip code.
Yeah, it is. Jeez.
Good gracious.
And it's only, I remember when Paul Stamets was talking about it, it was crazy to think like it's one cell layer thick for that long.
Wow.
Whoa, yeah.
Yeah.
True.
How does it, what even
How
is it?
How do mushroom?
How do mushroom?
Please. Paul Stamets, be on our show.
Yes, come explain it to us.
But both of you, Grant and Kevin, are very creative people and have been for a very long time and have been publishing your creativity in one way or another for a very long time. And I've always wanted to do something like this. So, and we'll go more into this when we talk about the writing competition in a later episode, but I've always been into writing and into creative writing, and I've started and stopped six or seven books, probably, like full-blown novels. And I tried to get into writing music, which both of you, that's going to be an episode as well. Both of you are musicians and can write and can compose your own music. And I haven't had a publication outlet because I would do these things and then I'd be like, oh, well, that's not very good. But I'm very good at talking to people. I'm very good at running my mouth. And so when it was actually the Wednesday before Thanksgiving this year, 2017, the year of our Lord.
I think so.
Joe Rogan. When you texted me that Wednesday before and said, I think that our conversations are essentially a waste right now because I remember the first conversation, one of the first full-length conversations we had, it was like 4 hours in a subway tunnel. Or no, it was like 2 hours in a subway tunnel.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't a subway.
Krog
Street Market,
Yeah.
in downtown Atlanta, and the Krog Street Tunnel.
We were there. We were at the tunnel and at the market.
It's not a subway tunnel. It's just a tunnel that people can go through. And
we were at Krog,
and we talked about conspiracies.
Yeah.
For like 2 hours or something. And you talked and I listened, and I would egg you on because I wanted to, because I just wanted to hear more. So, this is something that I know I'm good at, and that I know I can publish quite well and produce quite well. So I'm super excited for that. And also on our board, it says one of my points for doing a podcast is that I like to hang out and have conversation.
I like to party.
Party, dude. Shaw, bro.
My name is Kevin, and I like to party. Hot Rod, once again, people need to watch it. A lot of quotes coming from that movie.
And I'm super excited to have a lot more conversations. And I mean, this is really where, particularly my friendship with you, Kevin, was going to go. Is that we were going to eventually schedule conversations that we want to have,
Kind of.
and find time to sit down and have them anyways, and like, find professors at KSU who we would just want to meet with. Like, hey, Dr. So and So, can we just come to your office and talk to you for 2 hours? I mean, I mean, knowing the two of us, that was going to happen anyways. So
now they can't say no
and
because it's going to be published.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we might as well put it out there for everyone else to partake.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so the Joe Rogan idea of just kind of find anything, and we say Joe Rogan, you know, hashtag not all. Like, we know that there are other people doing the same thing, but he's the king.
Well, also, it's not going to be similar to Joe Rogan where, like, he'll have somebody like Cameron Haynes on, who's a bow hunter and a mega athlete's psycho runner. I mean, oh my God. But but they will talk about like the new Corvette or something.
Right.
You know, ours is going to be more structured in that, you know, when we have a topic for an episode, we're sticking to that topic, and that's what's going to be discussed, and we're going to have objectives for that discussion.
We may have tangents, but they're not going to be
they're going to be related, you know, like
one of us is going to rein it in, you know, eventually. We'll have to stay conscious of that.
hopefully.
right.
Hopefully.
But it is going to be similar to Joe Rogan, where we do have people on occasionally, and that's the thing, is that not every single episode is going to be an interview. Actually, the minority of episodes is going to be, maybe we'll have affirmative action for interviews. If it becomes too big of a problem.
It's probably going to happen.
Yeah, it's probably going to happen. But hashtag don't sue us for not having so many interviews. But there, I feel like there is going to be more structure. There is going to be more of a direction to each episode, and that I think we're going to have a pretty good balance of the genres of the topics are going to be pretty random, but the episodes themselves are all going to funnel into one particular topic and one particular stream of thought.
Yeah, that seems to follow everything we've been talking about. So, on the topic of that,
On the topic
of topics, we wanted to come in and bring in our 3 favorite podcasts. I want to hear yours first.
You want to hear mine first?
Because
okay.
I think we might have maybe one overlapping, maybe 2 overlapping.
We don't, actually. I'm willing to bet we do not. Yes.
Okay, I went basic.
Okay. Wow, you are just so basic today, Kevin.
I am basic. We will. Oh, trust me, we're gonna get into just how basic I am.
Yeah, that's gonna one episode will be dedicated.
How basic
to
is?
How it'll be the BK Lounge, the basic Kevin Lounge.
Take off your Uggs.
Yeah, put down your Starbucks.
The BK Lounge? Did you just? Was that Dane Cook?
No,
It is.
It is Dane Cook.
I mean, I am not referencing Dane Cook, but
Oh, my dear
We're
friend.
did he come up with?
later.
Did he come up with the BK Lounge?
Oh, my
did he
friend.
coin that term?
The BK Lounge. Yeah,
Did he coin the term though?
I think
I
so.
don't know.
More
Here we
research
go.
needs to. Yeah, Senpai
Look-
Grant, get on that. Oh, I get a quack. My first quack.
Yay!
That's a big moment.
All right, so hit me up.
Okay, so So we're also going to talk about why.
Oh, the BK Lounge first thing, Dane
Oh
Cook.
man, did he coin the term?
Yeah, that's that skit that was really popular when we were in like middle school or something.
And the pickles.
And the pickles, and
Okay.
the pickles.
I'm definitely going to need to see this because I'm saying the BK Lounge, and apparently somebody, some person in the modern era.
Oh, just
coined
some
the term.
person.
Yeah, some person. One of the most famous comedians of all time. But we're going to talk about why we like them for entertainment reasons, and then why we like them for technical reasons.
Gotcha,
Like
yeah.
what technically do we like about them as a podcast? And so, do you want me to say each one and like why I like them entertainment, or do you just want me to run through the list first and you'll do your list?
let's run through lists.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just run through lists.
Okay, so the first, I'm gonna go in chronological order that I was listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
The first big podcast that I listened to is The Session from the Brewing Network, and it's all about beer and all about craft beer. And
Nice.
one of my many interests, not nearly as much as fishing, is beer. And I love craft beer. I love the craft beer community. I love the brewing process. I think it's fascinating. It's very scientific. So as a scientist, and for multiple reasons, like building a industrial sized brew house involves a lot of engineering and architecture, and they go into that stuff, and that's very interesting.
Yeah.
But then I started listening to my next favorite podcast in chronological order is called The Drinking Bros, which
Look, heavy with the beer.
yeah, which
You went dunkel with these choices.
yeah, I'm double fisting drinking podcasts. But it's not about drinking really per se. Well, it isn't. The hosts get hammered on it, and that's what they call it, Drinking Bros. But if anyone listening is familiar with Matt Best or Article 15 or Black Rifle Coffee, it's those guys' podcast. And it is it's like the Seinfeld episode. It's a show about nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it does not follow a form, a topic. You know, it's literally 4 to 6 best friends hanging out, getting hammered, talking about anything and everything. Not really accomplishing anything with it besides hangovers, but
And expanding the Nooniverse.
and expanding some portion of the Nooniverse. I mean, it's my favorite. I mean, it's one of my favorite podcasts, so it's up there. And then also Anchored with April Vokey.
Whoa, what is that?
It's
I
a
have
fly
no idea.
fishing podcast.
Ah.
And
I will subscribe.
yes, you should
Sounds
because Grant I'm just getting into fly fishing, and that's why I'm listening to this podcast. Grant is a fly fisherman, and she travels the world and interviews people who are influential in the fishing community, and
Cool.
all of them happen to have some sort of scientific affliction. Or affliction. It is an affliction. Don't argue. It is.
What do you mean? Wait, hold on. What is a scientific? I'm not even catching what you're talking about.
Like they're scientists to some degree or another. Like they've caught science.
Oh no,
Yeah.
you totally
Gotcha.
do catch
Yeah.
it. Some people call it depression.
No, that's a master's degree, Kevin. That's different.
I'm in the trap.
Yeah.
Kev,
Yeah,
that was
you
a
are.
good goof.
That was a good goof. Way to go, man. Yeah,
Yay.
we totally rehearsed that, by the way. That's
Please don't meow over that goof. I think we can vote, and that one got in.
yeah. But she travels the world, interviews people influential in fishing in general, but also mostly in fly fishing, and that it's a really good show.
Interesting.
She has a very nice voice.
Ah,
That wasn't creepy.
it's nice when people have soothing voices.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I think you probably took the initiative there.
Dude, this is so funny because like if people know us without listing like our tops, the conversations that we had today, people would have went like I would be more basic than you, I think. And it's turned
We need to have a serious conversation about this basic thing. It's gonna happen. Don't worry about it. But I guess you're right. Yeah, it's we were kind of talking about that. But the ones that I would throw down for mine, at least in our realm, are far more basic because they're the ones that we overlap on a lot, all of us. So the first one that I wanted to talk about was actually the most least basic, at least within the scope of our friends, which is called Two Docs Talk. The reason that I like that podcast so much is that it's a very it's these two ladies. I do not remember their names, but they're both doctors. They talk about primary care problems. It's relatively short form. It's shorter than what we're probably gonna end up here. But they talk about very like simple, normal primary healthcare problems, and they talk about what are what are the theories of how can we fix these issues. They explain the issues in relatively simple language.
Yeah.
Doesn't take a medical degree to understand it. And personally, I'm extremely interested in this. I love the idea of content just going out on the internet for free, having lots of people just crowdsourcing ideas and crowdsourcing a think tank about things, and not keeping like an ivory tower kind of aristocracy of intelligence that's figuring out the answers to things. I like to crowdsource opinion on things, and Two Docs Talk is just exploring these medical ideas. I plan on doing that throughout my medical school education. I'm particularly interested in Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases, prevention of them. So just talking about them, talking about science, talking about the new papers that come out on anything. So that's why Two Docs Talk kind of made it on my list, because it was one of the best podcasts that captured that idea within a medical scope. The next one is super basic for our friend group. It's the Adventure Zone. If you all haven't listened to the Adventure Zone,
it's real good.
Oh my gosh.
So good. It's that sweet. That's when I start sounding like a McElroy.
I know.
Yeah. I've already said goof.
Yeah. I know, right? So for everyone who doesn't know, the Adventure Zone is, you could almost call it, it's like a subsidiary of the Bam like umbrella.
Yeah, pretty
the
much.
McElroy brothers, Griffin, Justin, and Travis McElroy, have a podcast, very, very successful, funny podcast called My Brother and Me. And I guess it was in like 2012 or 2013 they started.
Yeah.
I think Griffin and Justin.
I think it was 2014.
So they're pretty nerdy guys. They like video games a lot, and they had some little amount of experience playing Dungeons and Dragons, and there were already a couple Dungeons and Dragons podcasts out there, and they wanted to try to make a good one. They got their dad to come in and play as one of the characters, and they're just so funny. They're like,
also it's incredible. I mean, it is
the story itself is unbelievable when you get all the way through it. Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. The amount of work that goes into it.
Go. I'm sorry, but go through the list because I want to dive into this as part of the topic.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. The Adventure Zone will be on the list, but the reason it's on my list is just because it opened me up to a whole new form of, like, it's an older form of entertainment, really. Yeah. That's what we used to have, was like radio shows and things like that. And the Adventure Zone was just as, if not more, entertaining than any other form of visual or video game kind of media that I have. And then my third one is Hardcore History, which I genuinely think is a national treasure. It's so good.
Yeah, I can believe that.
And I even wrote on the board that one of my main reasons for wanting to do this whole podcast, and one of my main goals, is like contextual learning, like taking the time to really sit down, explore an idea in its entirety, and learn about it. And in such an incredibly more sophisticated manner, Dan Carlin teaches about
it at his level. It's really an art.
Oh, it's such an art. Yeah. Oh my God.
Definitely.
And the episodes, so don't let this dissuade you if you're listening. The episodes are like 6 hours long, and sometimes the series will go
will sit in a corner for 6 hours and listen to the entire thing, as I have done.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. And he's if it's 6 hours long, he'll spend 2 hours giving you a complete context of like what we're dealing with whatever this issue is. And he takes relatively some of them are really popular things, but he really dives into the little tidbits that you wouldn't have known otherwise about. And I'm very careful. I tread lightly when I say that, because there are some podcasts that are just like really gimmicky, like, I'm not going to say the name of this podcast, but little gimmicky podcasts that are like trying to like teach you about really random things that happen. But, it's like not important.
Which is fun, but it's not the learning production that Hardcore History is.
Right. Hardcore History, you come out of every single episode and you've learned something about life.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious about what that podcast that you weren't going to say was. Okay. So you'll have to tell me later.
I will tell you that. We'll tell you off air.
That also won't be in the show notes. Won't.
I don't want to start cuss talking podcasts while we're...
Yet.
Yeah. And by the way, that was me slipping in a little Fantastic Mr. Fox reference in there. Just saying cuss instead of cursing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, you cussing with me? That kind of thing. So yeah, those are my three, and what you got, Grant?
So my three, I'm very new to this whole podcasting thing, like within the last year. So my three, I'm gonna start out with a show called Limetown. If y'all have ever heard of that,
I have not heard of that.
It's amazing. I don't know if it's gonna finish. I don't know if they're doing a production on a second season, but the first season is like the Adventure Zone.
Okay.
Very, very good writing, very good
So it's
story.
a narrative.
It's a narrative,
Story-based,
yeah.
okay.
It's like an old timey radio, drama basically.
Yeah.
It's about a scientific community, this like utopian society, cashless,
Oh, Brave New World.
Brave New World-ish, yeah, that is in the hills of Tennessee, and suddenly one day all of the scientists and the workers who live there are gone.
Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah.
Man.
And there's no
Sounds
trace,
so
like
good.
no DNA, no. It's like
Who's
nobody
left?
even lived there.
Like no one's left.
No one's left.
We're just gonna talk about this one podcast, like the
Yeah.
plot of this one podcast for the
Whoa.
Yeah, it's a very, very good podcast.
All right.
I highly suggest
number
it.
2.
We are gonna binge that, by the way,
Yes,
and we're
we
gonna
are.
come
you
back.
can
finish
it probably within a couple days.
Oh, I'm gonna.
It's Christmas break too.
Oh.
School's not in session. Oh
Ooh.
man.
We're gonna have a whole episode talking about that because that sounds awesome.
Yeah. My second one's gonna be Welcome to Night Vale. It's another very weird radio drama.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation because I need more narrative,
Nice.
story
Yeah.
based.
So if you want
podcasts.
narrative story, Welcome to Night Vale is a little bit different. It is
Is it Black Mirror /
No.
Twilight Zone ish?
no, it's a little Twilight Zone-ish. All hail the cloud.
Oh, the cloud.
So it's really hard to explain. It's very random. It's very funny. It's really interesting. I
Welcome
think
to
y'all
Night
would
Vale.
Welcome to Night Vale. It's very popular. What was my third one? I honestly can't remember my third one. My brother and me is
Ooh.
Yeah.
always up there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I broke up with the McElroy brothers because they made me so mad on a personal level personal level. Like I know them. Like they were like, "Hey David, screw you." But
I remember that.
yeah,
It was a weird episode.
that was a weird episode. They were like, "Hey David, the fishy detective Axford of the Nooniverse." Screw you and your crappy podcast. No, but that's because I was very torn over putting the Adventure Zone on my list and that's why I wanted to get into it and talk about it because the new stuff I can't stand. I can't like
Gotcha.
and I don't know, like I was super excited when they were saying that they were going to continue the story arc. Please listen to the Adventure Zone so that you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Listen to it in its entirety. You won't regret it.
It's so
honestly.
good.
But I was excited until they did it, and now I wish that they just sort of let it be.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was beautiful, and I mean, I can't blame them for trying, but
Oh no, absolutely.
It's like movie sequels. I mean, you're never gonna have the perfect sequel.
and
you
when
know?
we say that they did like a big, like they had their main story and then they tried something else, we're talking about like 60. How big is
I think
the
it was
first?
72 episodes
over the course of like 2 or 3 years.
And each episode
Yeah.
is a little over an hour long, so that's a ton of
with
content.
a ton
Yeah.
of post production in it as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
great music, great
Yeah.
post production. It was phenomenal. And it's funny as hell. But
But the new stuff
yeah,
is like, and that's the issue when you create something so good is that
Yeah.
you set the bar too high for yourself.
hashtag prequels.
Yeah, right. Oh my god. And
We'll have an episode on
it's-
that. Bring Emma in.
Yeah. Misa, sorry. And it's just not as good. And so the podcast is not as good. And this is coming from somebody who listened to the entirety of the Adventure Zone not once, but twice.
Yeah.
I went through the
Oh,
entire
I probably
thing
will.
twice. Yeah,
I'm
it's
about
so
to
I
again.
just
good.
finished it. I just finished
Yeah,
it.
it's so good. And I just finished it and went about 2 weeks without listening to it, and I was getting withdrawal. So I started back over and listened to it all the way through again. And that's how much I love it. But the new stuff is just not that good. And that's why it's not on my top 3 list. Because I thought about putting that on there instead of the fly fishing podcast, which is amazing. And if you're into angling or if you want to get into angling,
I was a geometry major.
you were yeah.
He knows all about angles.
Yeah, he knows all about angles. You need to listen to that because it's really, really informative and it's really, really interesting.
Yeah. And so you brought up My Brother and Me,
Yeah.
also called Im Bim Bam. So to you, what got you into that? Because I think you got into that before, like, we even talked about.
Yeah, it was
Any of them.
organic. Well, it was. I say it was organic. It was from Reddit. It was the spider episode,
Oh, the TV show.
the TV show,
Ah.
and I saw a clip from that and was basically hooked.
Oh, yeah.
What did it for me was the vaping episodes.
Oh, it was the vape. Yeah, for me too. I heard a clip of them talking about which celebrity vapes the most.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was so funny.
I lost it at the Coldplay.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Arms outstretched. He was
Yeah.
looking up.
the
So at
Garfield,
peace with himself.
the Garfield monstrosity also.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
just take everything that we're saying right now, just search it into YouTube. You're gonna find like a 6
Yeah.
to 10 minute
And
clip of them talking.
We'll link
Oh, yeah.
everything in this
Absolutely.
podcast description. All of
Oh,
our
yeah.
favorite podcasts, we'll link those in the description.
Absolutely.
You should definitely give all of them a listen. I also want to talk to you about the medical podcast that you brought up.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
Yeah,
if
definitely.
I have one fault as a scientist and also as a podcast junkie is that, I mean, I listen to Hardcore History, but that's really the most academic podcast, and it's the most academic podcast in some sense.
Yeah.
But like, I don't really listen to any other academic podcasts, and I think that, in the medical context, what is really interesting about that podcast is short form, because I've tried listening to medical podcasts, and as somebody I'm also pre-med, by the way. I didn't state that explicitly earlier, but as somebody who's going into medicine, I want to hear more about the minutia and the science and like what goes into it. And I've listened to a lot of short form. Like there was an ER podcast that I listened to that
I think I know what you're talking
it
about.
was pretty popular, so
Yeah.
maybe. And I couldn't get into it because it was so short form. It was like 20
Yeah.
minutes, and I couldn't do it because I'm like, no, tell me about hemostats and tell me about
Yeah.
all the little nitty gritty scientific details. But I think that for people who want to. The normal person who actually isn't in medicine, because people who are in medicine are not normal people. We're strange. We're strange, and it's terrible.
Masochists.
Yeah, pretty much. And that short form in layman's terms is probably the best way to communicate medical concepts and medical issues to people.
I think so. It definitely feels like a.
And this is a life passion of yours.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yes. So we're gonna have a full episode where I talk about that. But so for the past like 6 years or 5 years that I've wanted to be a doctor. My father's a physician. I've gone to probably 24 conferences. I've gone to all kinds of talks from different doctors who have ideas about things. I've watched video. I would highly recommend Silicon Valley Health Institute. It's a great one. That's a longer form. And it's easy to access. It's easy to understand. But the Two Docs Talk, the reason I had picked that over like something like Silicon Valley Health Institute is just because it is that shorter form, and it felt like something that was more accessible to the layman. And
Well, also could teach you how to communicate those ideas to
Yes.
somebody else.
What's nice is y'all have a layman.
oh yeah,
So
Well, I mean, you worked in a doctor's office,
I did,
and you
but I'm
did.
not as in depth as y'all are. I am not pre-med.
so yeah, I mean,
By Grant's house.
by Grant's
Please
house.
buy my house.
So yeah, I guess learning about medical topics, listening to doctors who just have like YouTube channels and they put up videos, listening to speeches that scientists have given at different conferences. I do it like religiously. I just anytime I'm interested in any kind of medical topic, I absorb everything I can about it from the internet. A lot of it comes in long form, but a lot of it is extremely technical and hard to grasp for normal people. But that goes to we have to have an episode on this because I can't
Right.
really
I agree.
scrunch it down. But the idea being that the Two Docs Talk podcast that I brought up, I'm definitely striving in my entire journey to become a doctor and to do something in medicine more significant than just a kind of general job, is to figure out how do we connect the basic science to the clinical science?
Yeah.
Because anyone who says that there's a connection there is lying through their teeth.
Yeah, I'm gonna save my comments on that
Yeah,
for the
we
episode
could
that we
go
do that
forever.
on. Yeah, I mean that could be a multi-part episode very easily.
But basically, that's where the Two Dogs Talk. That's just that's a little part of if you can have anything where you go from basic science to explaining it to at a practical level. That's what I want to shoot for in my career to some degree, and I think Two Dogs Talk is a cool podcast that aims towards that.
Yeah, and
Okay, Senpai Grant.
yeah,
It sounds like you're saying Two Dogs Talk. Can we please do a podcast called Two Dogs?
Two Dogs Talk. Yeah, I'll
Two
bring
Dogs Talk.
in. I have corgis, and we call them the tater tots. I'll bring in a tater tot, and you can bring in Dewey, the golden retriever.
Yeah,
And,
we'll see what they say.
and we'll ask them questions. We'll ask them questions, and then it'll be 5 minutes of silence, and then we'll ask them another question, and then there'll be another 5 minutes of silence.
Didn't we just talk about that?
Yeah, we did. No, on the way when we were picking up all the equipment.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, we should have Dewey on.
And we just said like, hey, we'll do an introduction, ask him a question, and sit there for 2 hours.
And Dewey is the goodest boy ever, by the way.
Dewey's a very good boy.
Yes.
So,
But when you said that you thought we were gonna have overlap on one of them, I swore you were gonna say the Joe Rogan Experience.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I thought you were.
But I guess like that sort of default. We all love the Joe Rogan. I wouldn't put him in my top 3 even as a default though, because and I love the show, but I can't get into some of the episodes.
Yeah, I
and
understand.
the shows that I picked them because I keep going back to them. I haven't missed an episode of any of the. Well, as long as I've been listening to them, I haven't missed an episode that's updated live. So Drinking Bros started, I guess, 2 years ago now, and they're on episode. They're 223, and I have listened to 223 episodes. I have listened to every single episode, and some of them multiple times. The
Yeah.
Brewing Network, I have backtracked, and their episodes are like 3 hours long because
Yeah.
they do live interviews and stuff, and get very technical with the brewing process. I have listened to every single brewery interview they have done since 2005. Now, I haven't listened since 2005 because I was 10 years old and I didn't even know what beer was. But I backtrack that way, and I keep up with every single live episode now, and I haven't missed an episode since 2015. And since I've been listening to the Fly Fishing podcast, I haven't missed an episode. So for the last 4 months or so, and then I've backtracked and listened to every single episode since it was released. And so that's why those 3 made my top 3 was because what are the podcasts that I go back to no matter what?
Right. Yeah, I totally understand that. I mean, with something like Joe Rogan, and that's part of the reason I'm kind of glad that you brought up that we're going to be more focused on things, because I would agree with that if you have just complete non concentrated discussion about things, it's hit or miss. And
Yeah, it can definitely be entertaining. Like
yeah, oh yeah.
a lot of the Joe Rogan
definitely.
episodes for sure, and like the Drinking Bros podcast, it is about nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
They don't. Some guy will say, "Hey, what do you think about horse tranquilizers or something?" And then they'll talk about like just randomly they'll talk about horse tranquilizers for 30 minutes, and then they'll talk about something else.
What do you think of horse tranquilizers?
You know what? I would like to know anything about horse tranquilizers,
Yeah.
if I'm perfectly honest. But yeah, it can definitely be entertaining, but I like having a goal for sure.
Yeah.
And like the Brewing Network, I think that's something that technically they do really well, is that they have a goal. And the main host, Justin Crosley, is one of the best interviewers ever.
Nice.
I mean,
Cool.
he does so much research. He comes so prepared. I mean, he's on his A game, and he also, not that this means anything to him, which he's stated many a time on his podcast, but he was a communications major, and you can see how his education has paid off. I mean, he makes fun of himself for it, but you can listen to it and be like, oh my gosh, this guy actually
yeah.
he's applying
He took it
what
seriously.
He took it seriously.
Sure, yeah.
He actually knows what he's doing, and he has an objective for each episode. I mean, of course they go down rabbit holes and everything, but he has an objective for each episode, and he has a format, and he has questions and stuff that he wants to tackle in each episode, and they do, and they accomplish everything
Yeah.
in their format. And technically, I think like if you want to look for a podcast that's technically perfect, I would say that one.
Cool.
It's technically perfect.
There's another one that I would call something like technically perfect. Radiolab. Radiolab.
Oh yeah, totally.
Radiolab is
Yeah.
awesome, and it's so well done, just in every single way. Like from a technical standpoint, especially.
Yeah.
I
Oh
think
my gosh.
Night Vale's in the same vein as being
Yeah.
so perfectly done and like so niche that it works really well.
Yeah. And I think that and I would like to emulate that to some extent where we stick to, being random and having no agenda is fun, but technically speaking, you get so much more out of particularly the podcast forum. I feel like you get so much more
I agree.
when you hit the basics and you have an objective and you accomplish what you actually want to accomplish in the format that you've given yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that, well, one, and this is why we're doing this, we're kind of selfish in that we want to get something out of this. We want to, that's why we're doing this, is we want to learn. The only way to do that is we actually stick to our objectives and accomplish what we want to accomplish, but also other people are going to get something out of that as well. And because otherwise, particularly with us, if we just showed up and started talking, which we can do quite well, people are going to be so lost and so confused that it's like, why even bother?
No, yeah, I agree. Well, so on the topic of sticking to our format, we did a pretty good job.
We did do a good job.
Yeah,
I think so.
we had all of our basics covered. We stuck to our script that we kind of had.
Yeah, this is perfect because we wanted to talk about, we've tried to do another podcast as well. We tried to do a D&D centric podcast.
I didn't know that.
And
it was hard. It was
well, that's what that theme that
Oh,
yeah,
that's right.
and
That's
we made a theme
Yeah.
for it, and we had, but it just didn't work. It's like, it was like, I don't know, this analogy is gonna sound, it was like trying to sculpt with dry Play-Doh. We know what we wanted to do, and we sort of had the materials to do it, but it just wouldn't come to form, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I as soon as we tried doing it and we started playing some games. By the way, everybody, if we're saying D&D and you don't know what we're talking about, it's Dungeons and Dragons.
Play it, dorks.
It's fun.
Nerds.
So we played some games, and I was paying close attention to like what is everyone actually saying? How is the dialogue working? Is there dead space?
You were also the DM, probably, right?
I was the dungeon master.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of it falls on, you've got to have the next thing in your head always ready to go.
Yeah, and you got to be prepared for the stuff that aren't on the list as well.
Right.
Because you gotta be able to improv like that. But then it's also on the players to keep it interesting.
Yeah, to keep up.
Like you are the majority of what's happening in the entire game. You're the entertainment value in the podcast episode. And so that we couldn't make that work. Little spoiler, we're gonna try to do some amount of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, if we can ever get the people who we play with, if we can ever get, it's a play date, the people who we play with, if we can all ever again sit in the same room for more than an hour, because that's really difficult for us.
I have a roster of 20 people that I could call on.
Well, I was thinking about the household.
Yeah,
people.
the people that
who the listeners y'all will meet.
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
Eventually.
Now, one thing on my end,
Yes.
I am working on trying to figure out the sound. And so if this episode doesn't sound amazing, it will later.
We're working on it. Yeah.
Yes. We had
like the Nooniverse, we're evolving.
We are
Exactly.
evolving. We had a couple of technical difficulties. We've actually got pretty good equipment we're working with.
Yeah.
However, we just have a few technical difficulties we couldn't overcome, like the fact that Grant's headphone jack broke off in his computer.
So
I've got no comment on that.
yeah.
I was trying to think of something funny, but
Well, it's the ultimate jack off, right? You jacked on too hard.
I didn't get that.
What?
I get it now.
Okay, good.
But yeah, so from a technical side, we are literally looking at our levels. Like I can see when David laughed right there, you're probably gonna get some. You guys probably just
That
pulled
might
out
be
your
loud.
headphones a little bit.
I'm
That was
going to
probably
be
loud.
doing a lot of compressing on the fly.
Grant,
Yeah.
but Grant is very good at his
Yeah,
job.
he's literally
So
he's a trap wizard.
he is a wizard. In fact, if you can come up with some sort of magical nickname besides Senpai,
Wizard King,
the Wizard King, the King Wizard, the
King of Wizards,
Harry Potter,
Wizard
I don't
who
know.
happens to be a king.
Twitter.
Dumbledore.
We'll figure this out.
Yeah.
Dumbledore.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Dumbledore Grant. Dumbledore Grant. You have 2 first names. You're a wizard with 2 first names.
I'm the Ricky Bobby of this podcast.
Yeah, you're the.
So, yeah, we're working through these technical issues. We're going to try to get to the point. None of us have headphones on right now, by the way.
Yeah.
We're going to try to get to that point eventually. That would help immensely.
Yes, but I think that's if you want to start a podcast, like part of our conversation for starting a podcast was why don't we? Like
Yeah.
Definitely.
why don't we? Because I mean, if you have the means to record your voice, so if you have a phone, which I get that some people don't, but if you have a phone or if you have access to a phone, you can record your voice and you can make a podcast.
And expand the
iPhone's
Nooniverse.
voice memo is incredible.
Yeah.
If you look at the levels and you have even Audacity or something like that, you can piece together a podcast.
Yeah. And we're very fortunate, I think, to be, I mean, I'm fortunate because none of this stuff is mine, but like y'all being musicians of varying flavors, we have all the tools to make it happen. And we didn't have to invest anything extra into this. And I mean,
Not yet.
Not yet. But even without, like, everybody has their own separate microphone. Everybody has a pop
Right,
shield. You know, there's a computer with software running levels, and I don't
You got a
even
mixer.
I don't know. Yeah, we have a mixer, but you don't even need that. I mean, if you and your friend want to start a podcast, you just need a phone or even 2 phones. I mean, if
Yeah.
you have Apple earbuds, they've got a microphone. You know, you've
Yeah.
got a microphone, and you just slowly work your way up. And I mean, even though we're starting from a very good mechanical standpoint, we still have a long way to go.
Absolutely.
Before we're like, okay, we don't need to add anything more to this now.
Yeah. So, I think coming back to we wanted to do this whole episode basically first off introducing the podcast, introducing the idea of the new sphere, where that kind of came from, what we want to talk about, why we have our moniker of the Nooniverse and the whole noon thingy, just kind of where that all came from. We also wanted to just talk about podcasts. We have written here podcast philosophy, our favorite podcasts, what were our influences, and then talk about kind of what we wanted to do. And I think we got all that accomplished, and we intend on that kind of being what happens in every episode. We want to really stick to whatever topic we're talking about, but allow ourselves to just run free on each point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So to end the show,
yes.
we want to say, please subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Definitely.
Because that's how these podcasts are going to be released. For the time being, they're going to be released on YouTube until we get an iTunes account and get the iTunes podcast page set up. And I'm not exactly sure what goes into that, but I heard it's not super hard.
We should also try and do a SoundCloud page.
We should.
But they'll
limit us.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it does limit.
That's right.
Unless we get unlimited, but
don't-
hashtag GoFundMe.
Hashtag. Let us know if y'all would support a Patreon. And speaking of letting us know, also follow us on Twitter. It's at the Nooniverse with a capital T in the and a capital N in Nooniverse. The first N, not the middle N, because there's 2. I guess that's
careful.
Be careful. Tread lightly.
Yes.
And the next show we've decided is going to be about the great outdoors, and we're going to talk about our favorite things about the outdoors and what we like to do and things that we don't know about the outdoors. There's we're all pretty involved in the outdoors, but I don't know about you guys, but like as I have a very specific niche in the outdoors, and there's so much I don't know about the outdoors or things like what you can do in the outdoors and how to do it.
Yeah, we all have relatively unique takes on it, and I think we talked about we want to kind of focus on like the activities we like to do in the outdoors, our resume as outdoorsmen, I guess, whatever that means to us, because we do want to have a lot of things under the guise of the outdoors.
Yeah.
And this first one, we want to talk about what we like to do out in the outdoors and what it means to us. Yeah, and I'm excited for that to come up.
Me too. Me too.
So I remember that when we were going to end this, I was supposed to just turn to you and say, "Yo, how are we gonna end it?"
Oh God. Oh yeah, I did ask you to do that, didn't I?
You did.
Kevin, smooth trails.
David,
Don't give me
it's
that
a work
look.
in
I'm trying.
progress.
Oh my God.
David, fishy detective, the fishy detective, the Ohio State University, Axford. Keep your lines tight.
Thank you, bro.
Senpai Grant, spin that.
All right, later.